I'm Katie.
And I'm Erin.
And you're listening to Ropedrop and Parkhop.
And this is a weird episode.
It is.
Not weird. The episode's not weird.
It's an amazing episode, but we are fresh off of a trip from Disney World, so we did not record this week. So this is a past version of us telling you that we do not have any news this week. If anything crazy big dropped, we will share it on Instagram, maybe.
Maybe. And I feel like when we talk to this guest, we have a guest today. We teased it last week. We're very excited. Really, let's tell you a little bit about him really quickly now, because I feel like when we talked to him, we kind of dove into a different part of who he is. So he is a tour guide with Adventures by Disney, which is totally cool.
Yes.
And he has the coolest job in the world. But the reason we were so excited about having him on the podcast is
he was the Genie at Disney's Aladdin at California Adventure when it was in the Hyperion.
For 12 years.
For 12 years.
So if you ever saw Aladdin at the Hyperion, chances are really good you saw Danny as the Genie. And the Genie made the entire show.
Oh, absolutely. So cute. We're really excited. And it was so fun. The time flew by while we were talking to him. Like, we were scrambling to get out of the podcast studio because we were out of time, but we did not want to stop. And so there may be a part 2 episode coming up in the next few months because we've got more to discuss with him.
He is just a fantastic guy. We had the opportunity to meet him when we were there last month, and we connected with him. And then, even then, we sat and visited with him for an hour. And
the time flew by. And
we had to leave because we were running out of time then, too. And he's just really... He has a spark, which you'll hear about.
Sparkle.
He's fantastic, and we hope that you guys enjoy this episode. And dear Disney, let's bring back the Aladdin show at the Hyperion.
Yes, please.
Wouldn't people love that so much?
Or at least something, right?
Yeah.
Something. Okay, well, let's read a review, and then we'll get into the episode.
Okay.
Great Disneyland planning podcast from a year ago, and this is from Jen Loves to Sweat. 5 stars. These 2 friends are full of great info, giggles, and gab. My favorite episodes are the planning and breakdown episodes. I always learn something new, even as a SoCal resident. Keep it up, Erin and Katie. Awesome. Thank you, Jen.
Thanks, Jen. Hope you're sweating.
Do you think she listens to our podcast while she's running
she sweats, probably.
on the treadmill?
Probably.
Good for you, Jen.
Good for you.
All right. Enjoy the episode. I'm so excited for you to hear it.
Let us know. Let us know if you love it as much as we did, because we really did love it.
Our podcast is brought to you by Mouse World Travel. Imagine going on the most stress-free, well-planned Disney vacation of your life. Now imagine you didn't pay anything extra for that personalized service. That's what you'll get when you use an authorized travel planner from Mouse World Travel to book your next Disney vacation. From resorts to cruises and everything in between, they are here to help you get the most out of your next family trip. Just go to mouseworldtravel.com, fill out a short request form, and make sure you mention our code ROPEDROP so they know that we sent you.
Okay, guys, I am so excited about today's guest.
So excited.
We met Danny, which nobody's going to know who you are until we tell them who you are. We met Danny back in February when we were at Disneyland for our travel agency training. And we ended up having lunch with him and chatting with him for a little while. We realized we have a ton in common, but we also knew that we really, really wanted him to come be on the podcast with us. So what should we tell you about Danny before we introduce him?
Well, he's Adventure Guide Danny on social media, so first go follow him.
Yes.
He's amazing. And also, he has got a very interesting and cool Disney background.
Yes.
Some musical theater background, some tour guide background, all kinds of cool stuff.
So, Danny, you can start talking now. Currently, you are you are a guide with Adventures by Disney.
I am currently a guide. Currently a guide with Adventures by Disney. That is right. As a matter of fact, I was just telling you that I just finished a trip up yesterday at Disneyland Resort. So we did the Short Escape, which is a 3-day tour, which is we go to the Walt Disney Studios, Walt Disney Imagineering. We go to Walt's apartment, and we spend some time exploring both parks, Disneyland and California Adventure. So it's a quick trip, a lot going on in there, but I think well worth every cent and every bit of time. If you want to go to Disneyland and have yourself spoiled on what the trip to Disneyland can be, come with us, because I don't even like going to Disneyland any other way.
Without you.
Than with Adventures.
Without yourself.
Okay, so here's a question. Do you get, when you're there doing a tour with a group, do you get like VIP tour guide privileges? Like, do you get to go skip the line for things?
Well, I'll put it this way. When we do a trip, part of what we formulate when we do Adventures by Disney is to include a little bit of magic, and sometimes magic is surprises for our guests.
Okay.
So I won't tell everything that we do with
That's
Adventures by Disney, because
totally fair.
Because I just feel that all your listeners will be booking immediately after hearing this.
Oh, that's what we want.
Now, is there a longer trip too in Southern California? There is,
yes.
right?
Yep.
There is. It's called Backstage Magic. It's more like a 5-day, 6-night, like a 6-day trip, 5 nights and 6 days. Mm-hmm. 2 of those days being one where you arrive and one where you depart. That one's pretty great because we start in Hollywood, at the corner of Hollywood and Highland. We stay in a hotel right there. It's right in the heart of Hollywood with all of its grittiness, all of its color, all that, but also so accessible to things like the El Capitan Theater, Grauman's Chinese Theater right around the corner. And we do get tours of both of those theaters. And then that makes it accessible for us on that trip to easily get over to the Henson Studios, which is a very special part of Backstage Magic because Henson doesn't give private tours of their studios. And this is pretty cool. It's like the mothership of all things puppets and Muppets and Henson. So, and I think it was Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, where it was all the stop motion animation.
Yeah. Right.
Henson was instrumental in that technology and how they do that. James Cameron uses the Henson Studios for his motion capture for things like Avatar.
That's
but
cool.
The really cool thing, it's very cool. And the coolest part is that it's on the old Charlie Chaplin lot. So one of the oldest lots in Hollywood. And what it really is lovely about that trip is it's a really immersive experience into the history of Walt Disney, because, Walt Disney didn't move from Marceline to Florida. He moved from Marceline to Los Angeles, and that's where the company was started. So as Walt Disney is an American original, but the Walt Disney Company is a California original, like In-N-Out Burger and Apple Computers. So
correct. Yes.
Like all the cool things.
Yes. And you also get to spend a few days at Disneyland and California Adventure in that one, right?
Yeah, exactly. So if you think about it, the difference between the two trips is if you were to take the longer trip, you get the immersive Hollywood experience. Mm-hmm. And if you just do the escape, you show up, you meet your adventure guides at the Grand Californian Hotel. We greet you there. You get a ticket to Disneyland. This week, we've put 5 lightning lanes on the ticket for the first day. So there was VIP as far as like skipping the line kind of things. Mm-hmm. Well, if you've got 5 lightning lanes already on your ticket, you're pretty much skipping the line for 5 attractions during the day.
Yeah.
Not to mention, we also added a lightning lane for Pirates of the Caribbean this week. And then we were able to also walk guests onto a couple of different attractions on our Disneyland day. We got our pictures in front of the castle. When we come on either of these trips, we get up first thing in the morning going to Disneyland. We are on the other side of the rope drop. So all those people who have done the work and gotten to the rope drop in time to be there when it actually drops or be right at the rope, we're on the other side. We're already in the park by the time the rope drops.
Yeah, I love so it. Cool.
We're in the park before the magic hours. It's really cool. So we have pictures in front of the castle without anybody else in them but your family. And then we walk through the castle first thing. And what's been kind of fun lately, and again, like I said, don't want to give away any of our magic, but so I'm not going to say this happens on every trip. We walked through the castle. We walked over the drawbridge without anybody else, just our group. And we walked everybody onto Peter Pan first thing in the morning. So our group we were the first people to ride Peter Pan.
That is worth it alone.
I was going to say, that's huge. Nobody gets to do that.
No.
And it didn't break down or anything?
No, it didn't break down. Those are other attractions. That's Indiana Jones and that's River Springs Racers. Those are the ones that break down. But they are some of those two are some of the most technologically advanced attractions and Rise of the Resistance. So,
and they're always breaking down.
breaking down like me.
Me
after,
too.
In the middle of trips with the stress, I'm like, I'm breaking down. Like Indiana. I should just start saying I'm having an Indiana Jones moment.
There you go. I like that.
I think you should.
And nobody will know exactly what it means, so it'll be kind of, an enigma.
Exactly.
So you finished up your Southern California escape, and what's next for you? What's next on the tour guide front for you?
Well, it's pretty interesting because, we don't typically know what our schedules are as guides until about 2 months in advance. And then in my case, my schedule changed. They let me know what I was doing. And then less than a week later, I got a phone call saying we have to make some adjustments in the schedule.
Ooh.
So, so right now, and this is fun, I'll be going to the DVC member exclusive cruise, leaving out of Barcelona and going down the coast of Italy.
That's amazing.
So I will be the Adventures by Disney representative, ABD/Nat Geo rep for that trip. I think this time I'm going to be talking a lot more heavily about National Geographic, which I've also guided for. And so that will be the first thing I do. And then from there, back to Barcelona, I fly to Dublin, and then I spend the rest of the summer doing the British Isles, which is Ireland, Scotland, and England.
Fantastic. I've heard that one is a really, really cool tour.
Gorgeous tour.
Yeah.
I mean, scenery, like a nice. And for those people that don't like a lot of summer heat, the British Isles are a great place to be.
Yeah, there you go.
Maybe we should come visit you while you're there.
It's probably a lot greener there than it is here during the summer.
I think you should.
I love it.
Okay, let's come back to ABD. I want to talk to you more about it, but I want to talk to you about something that is in your past, way in your past.
Oh, no.
That I really feel like...
like my friend used to say, you got to leave you behind in the past.
Okay, let's talk about your friend. So
this
is the part that I love, and I'm so excited to talk to you about. And this is kind of when you said this, like the ABD thing is really cool. Adventures by Disney, super cool. Totally a bucket list thing. Katie's been on one. I have not been on any. She did Costa Rica.
Who are your guides, Katie? Who are you?
I had Kim and Fico. Have you met Fico?
At least some of... yes, and Kim is one of my work besties.
Oh,
so
perfect. Good. Oh, they were amazing.
Yeah.
Yes, so amazing. Yeah.
Okay. So
now back to my behind.
Back to your behind.
Yes.
Danny, who did you used to be friends with at the Disneyland Resort?
Well, I was friends with a lot of people at the Disneyland Resort, and the fun thing about this is that hold on, I gotta have an intervention with the squirrel.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. Take care of Snoop.
Oh my God.
Danny's dog is fighting the squirrels, keeping Danny very safe.
He is like, get out of our yard. This is our property. I'm really not that. You guys are alone. Get inside. It's like having the naughtiest version of Max from The Little Mermaid in your life. Like upstairs.
He does look a little like Max. He's cute.
He looks like Max.
Yes.
To give everybody a visual of Snoop, he is a sheepadoodle, and he's white with the shape of a Mickey balloon on his butt in gray. A shadow.
Yeah. I was telling you, I didn't even know that existed until his first groom, and then I was like. Because I was ready to get rid of him. Like, he is so naughty. He is like hard to train, but he's not hard to train. And then I gave him a grooming, and the Mickey ears were on his butt, and I was like, well, it was meant to be.
Yeah,
he's yours.
Can't
forever.
get rid of him now.
Yeah, he's mine forever. He's daddy's forever. Okay, so
you were friends with lots of people.
Yes, but I'm going to tell you this is actually a pretty cool thing about the gig is that. I didn't even have to use the Disney friend code to talk about him.
Really?
Because we were doing a theatrical representation of the story.
That makes sense.
So you were portraying this character.
Yes, I was. And actually, I wore blue today because of one of those factors, because I was the Genie in the Aladdin show, Aladdin, a Musical Spectacular, at the Hyperion Theater at California Adventure Park. For 12 years.
And I'm 100% sure we saw you perform multiple times.
Same. And you performed on closing day, didn't you?
I did. So if you go to the closing day performances I was the second and third show on closing day. I think you can watch that on YouTube. It was awesome. You know, it was really cool to be part of that because you could see what an impact the show had and how audiences loved it. And I mean, if you were to go rewinding back to that day, the line to get into the theater went from the theater to the front gate.
Wow.
And came back around to the theater and came back and then swirled back around to the front gate. So everybody wanted to get in and get that last shot at seeing the Aladdin show.
I miss it. I miss it so much.
Yeah, seriously. I've often said that if, you know, it's like an electrical parade. If they were to bring it back, people would come to the park just to come see
100%.
I feel like people would pay, you know, hundreds and thousands of dollars to come back and see that show.
Oh, absolutely.
You could charge a premium for those tickets. And there was something interesting you told us, and if this has to be off the record, we can totally edit this out. But you said that the Hyperion was originally meant to be a street facing as well, so that people not in the parks could come in and buy tickets to go to the show as well.
It was, you know, it was designed originally to have a lot of different functions. The technology, like the wiring, the stuff that it was set up to have television capabilities so that you could film a television show in there. You could have special things like, remember the Wonderful World of Disney and that old school kind of vibe?
Yeah.
So you could be doing a show from there, or you could say, you know, something live from California Adventure Park, or it was just designed with like the most up-to-date sound and technology so that those kind of things could happen. Things that were, I guess, the concept for it too was that they could potentially have a gate or an entrance into the theater that would be separate from a park entrance. So if they wanted to have an event, an award show, if they want, you know, something like that, then it wouldn't have to include entrance into the park. But, you know, like we know the early versions of California Adventure Park were not super popular. It wasn't
Nobody loved it.
Well received. Nobody loved it. I mean, it wasn't anybody's favorite park when it first opened.
Right. We're looking at you, Maliboomer.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny you said that because
Superstar
we
limo.
were talking to the guests. Superstar limo. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. With and that Superstar limo heavily featured Drew Carey. I remember that. Now he's all Price is Right and for CBS.
I know that was his jumping off point, right? To heck with the Drew Carey show. It was Superstar limo that catapulted him.
When you make it, if you've made it on Superstar limo, you've really made it.
Yes.
And I think I think it was actually Cher that was in that attraction because, you know, her face didn't move. So it's the same person.
Oh, there you go.
I remember back then, I've told this story before on the podcast, but they had the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire Play It back there. Do you remember that too?
Oh, yeah.
I got selected for the hot seat. I answered the question the fastest in the audience, and I got selected to go down and participate. And I was 2 questions away from winning a Disney cruise. And Disney cruise was still fairly new, you know. And so I was 2 questions away from winning the whole thing and getting a Disney cruise for 4. Instead, I got some pins.
What happened? Did you answer the question wrong? What was the
did.
Question?
I don't remember. You think it would stick with me forever, and I don't remember. I don't remember at all. I wish I could.
You're like, I blacked that part of my life.
I know, I blocked it out. My
It's
chance.
so traumatic.
It was very traumatic.
Okay, so tell us more about playing Genie.
Yeah, it was. You know what? It was a really cool thing when the Aladdin show opened. I mean, it was pretty early in the. People think that that's all that was there at the Hyperion, but when the park first opened, there was a show called Steps in Time that was at the Hyperion Theater, and it was sort of like a Disney jukebox show, but very modern and hip and kind of sexy, you know. But it didn't really have a story to it. It was just like showcasing Disney numbers, doing it like a modernized music, almost as if a DJ had gotten a hold of all the tracks, and then there was like this modern dancing, hip hop dancing to it. That's so funny. Back in 2000, we thought hip hop dancing was so avant-garde and so new and fresh at Disney. It's hilarious.
Very edgy.
Very edgy. And so that original version of Steps in Time ran briefly. Then they changed it, and I think the idea was like, I guess the guest response was it wasn't appealing so much for them because it didn't get what the purpose of it was. So they tried to add a storyline to Steps in Time. They added a fairy godmother and tried to tie everything in, and it didn't really work. It worked for some people better. I like the original concept the best. Steps in Time didn't last all that long, and then a show called Blast came in after that, which was sort of like a it's like staged marching band.
Okay.
So it was like, if look it up. I mean, if I'm sure Blast is on YouTube somewhere. So it's kind of like the idea of Stomp meets marching band.
That's interesting. I do not remember this.
It was. See, look it up. Look, the more you know.
That's right.
Talk to Danny. You'll learn a lot. Learn a lot of very unimportant information. But yeah, so Stomp ran in there. So we had, the cast areas were overwhelmed with a bunch of band geeks for a long time. It's like the tuba. I made friends with some of the tuba players in that show.
Nice.
What were you doing with Disney at that point? Were you working with Disney at that point?
Yes, ma'am. I started Disney in 1997.
That's when I graduated from high school.
Well, this conversation's over. Goodbye. Nice meeting you.
Blocked.
Listen, you know what? All I can say that if you graduated from high school in 97 and I was working at Disneyland in 97, then it just means that I probably, and you were coming to Disneyland back then too, hopefully, that I got to be in some of your core memories of the park.
Absolutely.
And I think about that all the time.
Yeah.
I think about that all the time. It's like, okay, how many photo albums around the world am I in?
That's a really cool thought.
How many? Well, and scary and kind of creepy.
Yes, true. How many coffee tables are you sitting on across the world?
It's so weird, right? Coffee tables. How many, and home videos am I in?
Yeah.
Like all that kind of stuff. Because I have a really cool legacy of being an entertainer at Disneyland, and I'm grateful for it. I got hired for this Hyperion show. That didn't end up panning out. And I won't mention their names. It's actually a very famous Disney name who's now a Disney legend.
Oh,
Josh Gad.
It's Miley Cyrus.
It's not. No, it's neither of that. I think I would have gotten along better with both of them than I did with this director at the time.
Interesting.
Who pulled me aside and she said, I'm going to let you go. It's in the middle of rehearsal at lunch break. And I had carpooled that day with a friend who was a dancer in the show. And she goes, we're going to let you go. And I'm like, well, and she goes, no, I've been thinking about it all day. She goes, you just don't have any sparkle.
Oh, no.
Danny.
She was so wrong.
You're like the sparkliest guy
I know. And I'm glad you overcame that. I'm glad you didn't let one person's opinion affect you.
Well, yeah. Well, it was not my one man's dream to be certain to be fired from my first Disney gig.
No doubt.
Yeah. Luckily, here's the thing that was really cool about it. I was wanted so I got hired essentially for 3 different things at Disney all at the same time.
Okay.
One was the Caroler on Main Street, one was in the show called Animazement, and one was this show at the El Capitan. And the El Capitan was the one that I wanted. So luckily, when they let me go for being sparkleless, or maybe I should just call myself dim from now on. I was from my dimness came actually something really great, because I had opted that first selection. I'd opted not to choose a park job, and the other 2 were park jobs. And so I called my friend who was a music director, and he'd wanted me to be a caroler on Main Street. And he goes, because I said I got let go, and he goes, well, we're starting rehearsals. He goes, we had a first rehearsal for carolers. Why don't you come in? We need a tenor. So I became a caroler on Main Street back in the day, where we played residents of Main Street.
Cute.
Who it was so cute. We were all in mid-century. I mean, not mid-century modern. We were all on turn of the century costuming. Mm-hmm. I owned the market house. It was Danny's market house. But the mayor and his wife had assembled the residents of Main Street to get together and carol on Main Street. And it was all a bunch of improvisational actors that could sing. The antics that we got up to on Main Street while we were strolling, I just can't even tell you some of the stories.
It was fun.
At risk of my... It was fun. It was at risk of my own employment. I shan't tell you all the really good stories.
Okay.
Not on recording.
Yeah, sometime
when we hit stop, we might need to hear some of this.
Exactly. And then at the same time, then I got hired and used for Animazement. So Animazement was, if anybody knows or has seen the famous Animazement or Disney trio where Pocahontas, Quasimodo, and Hercules all sing together.
I don't remember.
Oh, do you not know this?
No.
Oh my God.
I'm excited.
Did you say I'm excited?
Yes.
Because that would have made me really happy.
Mixcited, like
Mixcited.
a mix of excited and nervous.
It's like Animazement. It's mixcited.
It's Animazement. So yeah. So and the coolest thing about that, or not the coolest, and there was a lot of great people in that show, but I got to sing, out there.
Who were you?
It was Quasimodo if he sang out there, right?
Yeah, well, that would make sense.
Yes.
Wouldn't it? Yeah. So my big debut on a Disney stage, and I had a hump on my back, and I had a deformed forehead and nose.
It's such a beautiful song, though. I would have loved to have heard that. Oh, my goodness.
I'll tell you this, though. So it was the Disney Trio, and I'll send you guys a link to the video of the Disney Trio after we're done here.
Okay.
But it was, Quasi had to come. We were set up on this big castle and, standing in front of a rose stained glass window. And it starts out there strolling by the sand, and I had to there was a weird way that they wanted you to stand, right foot turned in, right hip cocked out, left foot had to face forward, shoulders, you had to create this sort of deformed body shape.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you, Workers' Comp, for helping that get fixed after all those years of doing it.
You're still close to the chiropractor.
Still close. But the funny thing is, it was a show full of really fast costume quick changes. Some of it happened on stage behind a rock. Some of it happened underneath the stage. So because it was like the Into the Woods of Disney movies.
Oh, how fun!
If Aladdin and Little Mermaid ended up being in the same world for just a second, and so every transition was seamlessly. I think it was all I got to do. Aladdin say, "All I got to do is jump," and he'd jump into a hole in the stage, and then they'd make a splash sound.
Oh, cool!
And it was as if he had jumped into the ocean, and then Little Mermaid, Under the Sea, all that came up from it. Anyway, oh my gosh, careful! If you want to talk about adult onset ADHD, I've got it in spades. So,
I love all of it though. They need to bring this back.
So And the sad thing was, it was designed to be a nighttime spectacular, and they decided that they needed to they could put more shows. So nobody even got to see how beautiful the lighting was. Nobody got to see how beautiful it actually was. But in winter months, we always loved doing it in winter months because the show looked so beautiful. But going back to track. So, I was going to tell you, so out there, blah, blah, blah. And Quasimodo in that strange body position and the quick changes, we had to put these things on our shoes. They were fabric covers for my shoes. So they looked that I had the big, shoes like Quasimodo wears that looks sort of like croissants,
yes.
Big old. Well, sometimes we had to do that quickly and the dresser would just barely get it on the shoe, or sometimes they get it underneath the shoe. So the shoe now has got fabric, slippery wool fabric underneath. So it'd be like standing on top of blankets. Well, I was on top of the castle, and then we had to do this run down a staircase. And it was like I'm trying to say, out there, strolling by the sand. Yeah, it takes the morning out there. No, all I ask is one to hold forever out there where they all live unaware. I think it was down there unaware. And I went down the staircase, and I hit the stairs. And the fabric underneath the shoes, right? So it was slippery. So I was like, where they all live. And I didn't go down. I didn't go all the way down. It was one of those things remember this? It was like a little toy, and you would put the toy. Had on a long metal beam, and it was like a woodpecker.
Yes.
And you would tap it, and it would peck all the way down the pole.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I was like, yeah.
This is you just go pecking down the stairs.
And I pecking down the stairs, but singing. So I was like, a
little vibrato in there.
Forever.
Oh man!
Oh all the way down.
Were you hurt?
Pretty funny. So, no.
Just your pride.
It was just one of those. I was like, well, that was. Hope somebody got that on video because
Wow.
But the posture went out. I kind of went straight up and down when that happens. Like, I just.
Oh my gosh.
But another really cool thing about that is if you've heard of a woman named Eden Espinosa, Broadway star, she did Wicked on Broadway. She did Wicked on tour. She's now starring in Lempicka on Broadway. In the title role, getting rave reviews. Eden Espinosa was in that show with me, playing Pocahontas.
Oh, that's fun.
So, yeah, it was, this Broadway stuff that I did later, it was funny because I always said when I was at Disneyland that my crew of fellow performers, it was some of the most talented people that I've ever met in my entire life.
I believe that.
And everybody's talking about pop stars or Broadway stars or whatever. And, you could cast Broadway shows 100 times over with the talent that I kind of, built my Disney muscle with. So it was when I met Kristen Chenoweth in New York, and she was doing the show with Eden, she's doing Wicked with Eden. So I got to see Kristen Chenoweth play Glinda, which was pretty cool. And I go backstage to meet my pal Eden, and she's showing me around. And here comes this little, like orange, very tan, tiny blonde woman, this Kristen. And Kristen goes, and she goes, Danny, this is Kristen. I said, oh my gosh, huge fan, great job, whatever. And then it's funny because Eden goes, she's pointing like everybody does this sotto voce thing when they talk about Disney stuff. She's pointing at me like this. She goes, he plays the Genie at Disneyland. And I was like so mortified that she was trying to get Kristen Chenoweth excited about me playing a character in a theme park. And I was like, no, don't tell her. And Kristen Chenoweth, she grabs me by the right here. She goes, no. She goes, she's little. She goes, no, don't you ever disrespect your heritage. She goes, I did theme parks. She goes, we know how hard it is. We have a great work ethic because of that. She goes, don't ever, ever, ever be ashamed of the hard work that you put in.
Yep. But also, I would say that the Genie at DCA is legendary, on par with Glinda.
You know what's funny? Though? I will say this: I guess I should really just reevaluate how I think about what I did. And I think when I say things like being on people's coffee table books, and I say it tongue in cheek that it's creepy, but the truth of the matter is that if you get an opportunity to do something like work at Disneyland in shows, if you get an opportunity to be an adventure guide or play a character like the Genie, you can't forget the influence that kind of thing is. I mean, after all, Disneyland and Magic Kingdom are some of the most visited places on Earth. And as we were taking guests up into Walt's apartment last week, we discussed the whole thing about core memories and how going to Disneyland does give you that sense of childlike wonder again. You can see the world through different eyes, or you can escape the world that maybe isn't so great for you right now. And then when you take your kids back to Disneyland, you are reminded of why it was important to you. When you see them reacting to it, you see that magic. Or when you go as an adult for the first time without any kids, you're like, oh, I can enjoy this. This is fun. There's no one screaming and nobody demanding, and I haven't forgotten to feed anybody, so they're having a meltdown. It's pretty impactful. I don't want to forget the fact that I have had, and I stray away from giving myself too much credit about anything, but that's why I tell my stories, to remind myself, don't forget you did this though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think it's important for you to remember too that Disneyland is a lot more accessible for families than Broadway theater is. And you were probably a big part of an introduction to theater, stage theater, musicals for a lot of children who wouldn't have had that introduction otherwise.
Right.
And we're a big, I mean, Katie's family and my family both are big fans of musicals. And honestly, the first thing that my kids ever saw was Aladdin. Yeah. At the Hyperion.
No way.
Yeah. And it was, sure it was you. It had to be. So,
if it was hilarious, it was.
Yes,
if it was
absolutely.
only okay, it was the other guy.
Okay. So that's my next question. Let's go back to Genie a little bit. So
Okay.
Preparation, because I can't even imagine the amount of time it took for you to get makeuped up. And then also ad-libbing. How much of what you said was script? How much of what you said was off the cuff? Because because the Genie was very well known for being like current, like current events and things like that, like off the cuff.
Yeah. So to prep for being the Genie was twofold. One was on the way to work every day, I would listen to talk radio and news radio so I could hear what the latest news stories were. And I would look at Twitter, see what was trending on Twitter, see what people were talking about on Twitter. And so my ride when I had to get to work was probably like 45 minutes because of traffic. And you know, in California, we don't talk about how far things are by miles. It's how long it's going to take me to get there.
Yeah. Right.
And the reason we talk about that is because traffic is such, you know, it's a part of life. So some days it's 20 minutes from my house to Disneyland, and some days it's been an hour. So I would sit and listen and do my research. And when you get to the theater, you keep doing it. And then for me, the process was, okay, well, how do I make a joke about Justin Bieber, for example? And, you know, there was a Justin Bieber joke that we had for a long time. And now I watch content and I'm like, would have been a great time to be the Genie to talk about like Britney Spears dancing with knives.
Oh, man.
Stuff like that. You know, all these things we could have implemented. And so you just wait for those juicy bits to show up in the news, like some sensationalized piece of news. Get on the cash shuttle, still working on it. By that time, I've got a joke formulated. I'm practicing saying it so people in the shuttle think I'm crazy as I try it at different times, because there is a rhythm and a music to comedy, and you can say it one way and it's like that was too hard to say. If it's so hard to say it, it's not going to be easy for the audience to listen to. So this is all prep because I never did the same show twice. I always did something different in every show, which made the castmates a little bit nervous, but we also had a lot of fun with that. There was, you know, when you do it a lot, it's exhausting. So I think that maybe on days, I mean, I tried to do a different show every single time, but there may have been some days, like I did the show when I was sick. So I may have fallen back to a really great show that I did before that I remember the jokes, just like, don't think about it. You get to the theater, you're still saying, creating, writing a joke, or putting at least one joke that you think hopefully will be the knockout, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes knockouts were like one-offs. I'll never forget there was in a place called Rancho Cucamonga, California, which is just comical to say in itself. There were some fires, and this is back in the day before fires in California were just like every year, crazy, everyday disasters. And so this Rancho Cucamonga fire had just really made the skies like all dirty. And everybody's talking about the fire in Rancho Cucamonga. It had not gotten into any residential areas or anything in the morning. So the first time after A Whole New World and all the smoke is on the stage, you know, I walk on and I'm blowing, it's like Rancho Cucamonga out here, right? Which was hilarious until people's homes were being destroyed by the fire.
Right.
So by the second show, the joke was not funny anymore. So that was a joke that I came up with that got cut.
Got it.
In the beginning. So that was what was really cool. I mean, I always feel like the Genie's such a specific character. He's one of the only characters that Disney's ever made comparable, not a Disney character. A comparable character would be Beetlejuice, where he's got references to things past, present, future. He knows pop culture. He doesn't not stuck into a timeline. And then on top of that, like the whole digging in and like really learning who Genie is was a whole other thing, because I used to think it just was about making him funny. I just wanted to make him funny. And then after I think around about midway mark of me doing Genie, I realized that he was real, that he had feelings, that there was a purpose to all this comedy happening. It was a desperation, you know, he needed somebody to like him, and he'd forgotten what that meant and it was sort of overkill. We're going to get into
I love it.
Genie Philosophy 101.
Yes.
And if you think about the show, every character in the show is searching for some kind of freedom.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Jasmine wants freedom from the palace. Sultan wants freedom from his position as the Sultan. Aladdin wants freedom from the streets and poverty and hunger. And the genie wants freedom from the lamp. Jafar wants freedom from being the second guy, you know? And so I started getting into this very deep stuff about what the genie was and why he was and what he was trying to get done. And so making him funny was good, but it also had to come from somewhere. So in that line where Aladdin says, "Sorry, genie, I may still need that final wish." The difference between the beginnings of when I did the show to the end was I loved just my favorite line that I ever said in that show was O-H period, because it had so much impact. If you could play it right, be funny, be likable, make the audience your friend from the beginning, to the point where when Aladdin says and they know the story, they know what the story is going to be, but they're now got it in with a real person in front of them that they feel is now their friend. I can talk to the audience, you know, the rest of the characters can't talk to the audience. So it's this very interesting schematic of how the relationship with the genie and the audience to that moment where Aladdin doesn't give him what he desperately wants. And I think that by creating a backstory for his desperation and why even if I'm not telling the audience that, when he gets betrayed, the audience is on my side, is on the genie's side.
Of course.
Yeah.
So the silence that happened after Aladdin says, "I need it for myself," and Genie just says, "Oh." And it was like, and I mean, I almost can't talk about it like anymore because my sense memory of that moment now is like, I remember just like allowing myself to feel disappointed and crushed and hurt and just, you know, that moment where you're so hopeful that something will be different and you go back to it and it's the same thing. And you're like, why did I even bother getting my hopes up? And it's so funny because this is the kind of stuff I like talking about the genie, because everybody just wants to say, what was your favorite joke that you ever told?
Right.
And, you know, he's funny, but I think more importantly, he has so much humanity, even though he's a genie, but he really has humanity to him. So that was the preparation, really figure out who the character is, writing the jokes. The jokes, sometimes I tell jokes and I'd be like, oh, I'm going to make a risk. And of course I get the notes after, don't tell that one anymore. But yeah. And then sometimes you don't know if a joke's going to work until you throw it out there. It's like, you know, spaghetti, throw it at the cabinet to see if it's done. If it sticks, then yeah. But if not,
moving on.
There's a lot of things where you tell it. Yeah. And I remember telling a joke one time and it totally bombed. And I just got my hand out like I had a pad of paper and I wrote, "Note to self, never tell that joke again in the show."
And I think I remember you saying that. Yes, yes. That actually sounds very familiar. And when we met you and when we found out that you had played Genie, this is the stuff that I was most excited to hear about. And this is, at least for me, this is what I hoped would happen when we interviewed you on the podcast. Yeah. So like having you come out with this it's magical. And emotional for us too. I can feel the emotion from you, but we're feeling emotional over here too. It's great. So thank you for that.
I think the key, and this is, I think, you know, Disney is a lot of people's escape, and it can, you know, what are the worlds? The worlds are a world of fantasy, a world of tomorrow, a world of adventure, you think about those words: adventure, fantasy, tomorrow. Those are all kind of escapist words. You know, you have your fantasy life. You would like to have a life of adventure. And when we dream of adventure, we don't necessarily go, my life's a great adventure. You know, you probably, even doing the podcast is an adventure. It's a risk and it's an adventure.
Yeah.
And then tomorrow, you know, the concept of tomorrow is hope for what's next and seeing what the future will bring us. So, and I think that it's important that like that's what the parks are set up for. But I think that the Disney experience has got to be, and I take this into my Adventures by Disney guiding, is being authentic. And if you can't be authentic, if you can't do things with your heart leading first, then it's not necessarily appealing. And I can't do it any other way. I mean, I think that's one thing that I discovered is like, stop trying to hide behind a character or hide behind my singing voice or hide behind the jokes. It's all part of the package. Those are all part of who I am.
Right. That's you.
But most importantly, I want to be open-hearted and allow people in. I think that happened when we had our lunch.
Absolutely.
At the conference. It was like, oh, let's open up. Let's talk. And you guys, you did it for me as well. And that's, I think, why we had such a great connection at that conference. So, yeah.
So cool. Thank you. That's awesome. And so let's talk about this for a second. So you played you played Genie in Aladdin for so many years.
Yes.
Did you ever consider auditioning for Genie on Broadway when the show was brought to Broadway?
I did consider it, but I'm going to tell you this. When I worked on, so my whole Broadway career was based on things a foundation that I started many years before Broadway happened. Mm-hmm. I was doing the Aladdin show. I had an agent. My agent said, hey, they're doing Sister Act, the musical at the Pasadena Playhouse. And it's Alan Menken is the composer. And I'm like, what is this? They go, well, it's like a pre-Broadway whatever. And I didn't realize it was like a real pre-Broadway workshop, out-of-town tryout, all this kind of stuff. And they said Alan Menken will be in the room along with Marguerite Derricks, who's a choreographer. If you don't know who Marguerite Derricks is, look her up. She's amazing. She's my buddy. She choreographs currently The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Oh, cool.
And then she's also known for this move.
Nice. I know that one.
I did a Showgirls hand move, everybody.
Yeah, Showgirls. There it is.
She was Showgirls. So she was the infamous choreographer of Showgirls. So that is her trademark move.
Oh, so cool.
She's done so much other stuff, but she ended up being a really good friend. I go into the room, I audition. I changed my song before I went to the audition, which you're never supposed to do. I go in, I sang Last Dance by Donna Summer because they wanted to hear a falsetto at the beginning. And I just was like, you know what? It doesn't matter. I called in for my shift at Aladdin. You may as well make this count. And I left the room, and the casting director said, he chased me out and he goes, Danny, he and I he'd seen me audition for many things. He goes, what was that? And I felt bad. I was like, oh no, was it Tara? I said, was I too ballsy in there? Like, you know, cause I was like flirting with the choreographer. And I was like, when I said, when I'm bad, I'm so bad. I spanked myself and, you know, all these things like his. And I said, no. And he goes, no. He goes, I've never seen you audition like that before. He goes, they're going crazy. They want to know who you are and how come they've never met you and blah, blah, blah. And Bill and Sherry Steinkellner, who were the writers for a little show called Cheers, were the writers on the script there. They also did a show called Teacher's Pet, the animated series.
Oh, yeah.
And then Marguerite, choreographer of Hollywood. She did the Spider-Man movies, all that kind of stuff. Peter Schneider was the director. Now, Peter Schneider was the vice president of feature animation, is the one who ushered in the Disney Renaissance. So he brought in Alan Menken and Howard Ashman.
Wow.
And they said, we can make big Broadway musicals in our animated movies again. And so Peter Schneider is the reason, starting with The Little Mermaid, that the Disney animation renaissance happened. And he was a director on the show.
Cool. And
they said, there's really not a place for you because the only character that's right for you, we've written he's tall, thin, and bald, and his name is Bones. And then Sherry and Bill, who wrote the script, they said, but you're making us think we may need to redo his character description.
Wow.
So I got hired as Bones, and they changed the character description to match me instead.
That's amazing.
And so it was pretty cool. And then I have this very long relationship with Alan Menken. So we had done the Out-of-Town Sister Act. Wonderland, and I'll have to tell you the story of my Broadway, when I got my first Broadway contract. But Alan and I had a very good relationship. He trusted me. I was a hard worker. He liked that I could improvise. And so he used me for readings of Leap of Faith then after that. So I actually got offered I got offered Wonderland on Broadway, and the same day they called and asked me if I wanted to audition for Sister Act. And I was the whole concept of a bird in the hand is worth, whatever. Mm-hmm. So I took Wonderland. Wonderland was a disaster. Not a disaster. It just wasn't. It was not everybody's favorite show, and it closed after a month. And I came home, and I was home for 3 weeks, and then I got a phone call, and they said they want to offer you Sister Act to be a replacement in Sister Act on Broadway. And so I went back, did Sister Act on Broadway. That was Alan. And then I was doing Sister Act for 6 months. And then Leap of Faith was coming to Broadway, and Alan said, we'd really like to have you in the cast of Leap of Faith as well.
That's fantastic.
We just want to have you be part of the crew. So, yeah. So I did 3 in a row in a year and a half's time, which I think is a pretty cool achievement.
That is really
3
cool.
Broadway shows. And I have to say this, I always thought that Broadway was going to be, and that was what made me decide to call into that shift of Aladdin that day, is Disneyland it was a stepping stone to the big goal. The big goal was always Broadway. And I always tell my students, as I said, if you let go of your dream, if you let go of what you always wanted to happen, then you give it away to somebody else. But if you have a place for it, you always keep your mind on it. It may not be around right away, but it will come around. But you can't give up on the dream. Because, things are written in the stars, but that doesn't mean that they're set in stone. To set something in stone, you got to get the hammer and the chisel out, and you got to do the hard work before you etch it in there, and then it becomes yours. So the Broadway dream was mine, and I'm not closed down to
returning
doing it again.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I would love to. Yeah. So
Alan,
now starring as Elphaba, Danny Stiles.
Why not?
He's used to be painted in a different color when performing.
That's right. You've sat in a makeup chair many a time.
Al, we told you.
Hour and a
We told you at lunch that day that speaking of Alan Menken, we would really love to see them do some Newsies in the Hyperion since it's just sitting there empty.
Wouldn't that be amazing? Mm-hmm. Wouldn't that be amazing if they could have Disney shows? Because we've got so many of them now.
Yes.
Newsies, Lion King, Aladdin, Tarzan. Yes, I said it.
We don't need to bring Frozen back.
Yeah, we've had Frozen has had its run. It's fine.
But the concept for Aladdin was, it was controversial. It was an hour show. Mm-hmm. It was a storybook show, it was, had a script. Speaking of that, you asked about the jokes. It was sort of like a template, and you. Here was the spot that you could add the improvisation or where it was. Okay. And it was that same way for a long time. So there was things, of course, you got to keep the story going and then insert in these kind of traditional spots of where the jokes were. And I think when they first did the show, it was very specific. This is where the joke can come. And then the longer we got into it, the more you go, well, I could probably add something here as long as it's not distracting from the story or taking away from whatever character is having a moment.
Which was probably the Rancho Cucamonga joke coming out of the smoke.
I mean, yes. Yeah. I mean, that's such an obvious spot for it,
Right.
And then you start playing around with delivery of lines. How do you, even how in the moment, can you think about it, what you're saying, but give it a little bit different, a little different emphasis on the different syllable, and it could change it. So that was sort of how it ran. And of course, then if it was, a Genie actor sort of stroking their own ego to talk about, just to make themselves funny, the stage managers, the directors would be there to say, hey, pull it back. This really is Aladdin's moment and not the Genie's moment. And it was too easy to make things the Genie's moment. I was the only person, on stage that was head to toe blue. So it's not like I could just be on stage and just hanging out doing nothing.
Yes.
Had to be Genie the whole time.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's cool.
But the temptation was strong. The temptation was strong to take over the show, as you're witnessing right now.
Nope. This is why we have you here. We are happy to be background. I have a question for you, and I don't know the history of the shows on the cruise lines are similar format, right? So
very similar.
As
a matter of fact, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, which ship are you going on when you start your job next? And do you know, is Aladdin playing on that ship?
You know what? I haven't even looked. That'd be interesting.
Wouldn't it?
I am going. Yeah, it's the. Oh golly. I think it's the Dream.
If it's
Disney Dream
if it's the
going.
Dream, then you are I'm trying to think because I think Aladdin is on the Fantasy. So
Okay, I think
I'm trying to remember what's on the Dream. Would be Tangled, maybe?
Tangled?
Yeah, I think that's right.
It's Tangled.
Yeah. Well, you'll have to go on the Fantasy sometime soon and tell us what you think.
I was invited to be the Genie, the first Genie for the ship show.
That's cool.
Yeah,
the ship show.
Guess what my response? The ship show. Guess what my response to that was? I really don't see myself being away from home for that long.
No, I think.
And now you go and do ABD everywhere.
That's what you get.
Exactly.
It's different being out on a ship, though, I think, than a land adventure. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe it's pretty similar, but.
Well, yeah, on a ship, if you get a night off, you can't necessarily go down the street, and
right.
check out this new restaurant or, go listen to live music anywhere. It's like, okay, well, guess I go watch the Aladdin show again.
Right. No, I get the impression that the cruise life is pretty hard, but also fun and exciting.
I mean, I'm lucky. I got little stints of it, so it's just like a little sample. But okay, on to the next.
So when did Aladdin close?
That's a good question. 2017.
2017.
Yeah.
And then what was...
Wait, was that it? No. 2000. They closed earlier. They closed 2000. Oh, golly.
I don't remember.
Well, because when did...
May have been 14 or 15.
Yeah, I was going to say Frozen started. Gosh. I don't know. We'll have to look it up later, but...
So what was your role with Disney after that until you started with Adventures by Disney?
Okay, so let's go back to leaving Disney and going to Broadway.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, the Aladdin show was waiting for me when I got back from New York.
Oh.
So I came back to California, and they said, "Well, please come be part of the cast."
That's amazing.
So I rejoined the Aladdin show. Well, I mean, it's sort of funny when you walk back in the door and you've got the Broadway credit with you, and hire me not. Why? Why would you not?
I don't blame you. Not at all.
And so then the back to Aladdin, and that's really when. I mean, I'd done the Aladdin show full time a couple times during that, but I was so utilized in the park for other things. It was one of those things they like to keep me out of the Aladdin show because once you're in makeup, you're committed to that show. I also was what they called a park swing. So I learned at one point I had 17 different roles that I knew in the park.
Wow.
And some that I taught myself. And they had this thing to keep shows from going down. They would have specific performers
on standby,
have a lot of show knowledge.
Okay.
On standby, ready to jump in. So some days I just go and wait for somebody to call in sick and jump in. I had to learn Groove 66, the a cappella sextet, pretty much on my own.
Wow.
Which was hard and terrifying because these are all very talented musicians doing that show. But so
you're like the ultimate understudy.
Yes, and actually that was one of they changed. I knew 13 at the time. I went up and I had a conversation with my manager and I said, "Hey, I don't know why I have this show knowledge and you guys don't even give me full-time work." I said, "I know 13 shows." And he goes, "Huh, interesting." So they created a position called the Park Swing, and I was the first one to create that position. I don't know if that's still happening at the parks right now, but that's what I was doing, and that kind of kept me going for a long time in the parks. So I come back and do Aladdin. I learned the Frozen sing-along show as I think it's Eric, the storyteller. It's no close. And I did that after Aladdin closed. I was doing that show. And it was at that time, right around 2015, I think, when my friend Jason Palmer, who is sort of a legendary adventure guide, said, "Have you ever thought about doing Adventures by Disney?" And when I worked at Imagineering, we had this
which we haven't
Blue
even
Sky
talked about, and we're like an hour into this. We haven't even talked about Imagineering at all.
No,
it's okay.
No, it's not great.
No, you're fine. I don't want to keep you all day, and so we'll have to have you on again where we talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, but it was. I mean, I was doing D23. I was doing a presentation at D23, and I met one of the trip developers, destination managers backstage, and she was hanging out with all my pals from Disneyland, and we got on really well. And she goes, "Have you ever thought about doing Adventures by Disney?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, well, that'd be amazing." But she goes, "No, you'd be great for it." And then later on, my friend Jason, we were sharing a dressing room for the Aladdin. No, my gosh, all these shows that I've done now are like Rolodexing in my brain. It was the Frozen sing-along. And he was like, "Just so you know, it's time to apply for Adventures by Disney." So Aladdin was, I think we were in the last stages of Aladdin, sort of transitioning before it closed. And I was like, well, what could be better than being the Genie than traveling the world for the company?
Yeah.
So I applied. About 3,000 people applied that year. And I think about probably around 30 of us got hired.
Wow.
And that was it, 2016. And guiding was very different than being a performer. Like, you got to do your office work, and you got to do your admin, and you got to learn how to use Microsoft, all this kind of stuff. And that's not something that actors just are like, I'm going to learn my song, go out, whatever. So I applied, and it was a rigorous application process. It lasted several months, to be quite honest. And they take us to training in Florida, doing all this training, and then that's when they kind of you go to training, you don't even know that you're going to get hired immediately, because they can be like, not cutting it. This is not,
it's part of the audition.
Like, what's it like to be with these people for a week or 5 days or whatever?
Yeah.
And at the end of it, they let me know that I would be opening up a brand new product with Adventures by Disney. So the river cruising launched that year. And I helped launch the Danube River cruise that first season. And then subsequently opened the Rhine, and then have guided on the Seine. And so, it was really cool. That was a part of the world that I had been interested in for a long time.
I was just going to ask, had you been to these places before?
Some. Germany I'd been to. Germany, Austria, but like Hungary, I was like always fascinated with Hungary.
Yeah.
Especially because growing up as a kid, this will date me a little bit, that was all part of the Iron Curtain.
Yeah.
So, part of going into those former Soviet occupied countries was really interesting.
It is fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah. And then, to go someplace that we were sort of trained to be afraid of as kids, because, this empire that was over there. But realizing that people, and I think it's the best thing about travel too, is that you realize that it is a small world, and it's best to go see these places and formulate your own understanding of what people are, or, food or culture, and understand that everybody's just trying to make it through life and trying to be happy. And we all pretty much have the same goals.
That's what I was just going to say. We have more in common than we don't have in common. And that's the beauty of traveling. And the more I travel, the more I feel like there's not enough time to see all the places in the world that I want to go.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I know. So, So then I launched 2016, and been, except for, the years of COVID, that's what I've been doing.
Amazing.
That is amazing.
I love it. And I bet you're perfect for it too. We'll have to try and make it happen where we go on one with you someday.
You should. Come on. Let's make it happen.
Fun.
Yeah.
Okay. We're running out of time, so let's wrap it up. But one final question for you before we say goodbye. Well, unless you have another question.
I'm good, I think. Until next time, anyway.
We'll have you on again, because seriously, I feel like we could talk to you for hours.
Yes.
So a lot of the people who listen to our podcast are planning trips to Disneyland. If they want to go off Disney property for an amazing meal, where should they go?
Oh my gosh, ladies. Funny you should ask. Well, the cool thing is that, there's a lot of really great places in Orange County. Orange County is, well, first of all, Disneyland in particular, or California Adventure, they do have delicious food at those parks.
Totally.
I would say that the Disneyland Resort is number one as far as park food in the United States.
Agreed.
But going to a place like Chalk Kitchen, CHA''AK, Chalk Kitchen in Tustin, that is an elevated Mexican restaurant. Delicious, really great cocktails. You can get small bites. They have a branzino dish that just rules the world. Really good. And it's nice to get out and see just a cozy little atmosphere. But places like Chop Kitchen, there's that's where I would go.
That's where I think that's what I was looking for.
Gardens.
Yep.
And we will.
Yep.
We
Did you go?
We didn't.
Did
we
you
need
go?
to. No,
Did you
it's
go?
on our list. We didn't have time, but it's on our list, and we will for sure make that happen. So anyway, I just wanted to end with that.
We needed a plug for that.
It's like being on. Where's the hot wings? Where are the questions on the hot wings?
That's right. That's right. Hot ones. Yep.
I saw somebody walking around in the background, and I assumed that was him, and so
Yep, that's him. That totally is.
So I wanted to give a little plug.
Amazing. So cool. Thank you so much for being here with us today. This was every bit as wonderful as I thought it would be. You are fantastic.
Oh, well, thanks. Sorry, I mean, I've got the gift of the gab.
No, it's
spades, so.
You know what? It works well in the podcast format.
Absolutely.
So you're good.
Good.
You're a natural.
Good.
We would love to have you on again sometime if that would work for you. Tell people where they can find you on social media.
Well, you know what? I'm really slow on social media, but right now I'm Adventure Guy Danny on Instagram, Danny Stiles on Snapchat. And I'm on TikTok too, but I haven't really, I think that was one of my goals. I'm like, okay, this is going to be the summer of TikTok. If we still have TikTok.
I was going to say, if it doesn't get banned.
Right. If it doesn't get banned. But they can always look for me on Adventure Guy Danny on Instagram. And I post on there quite often. I post where I am. And then I also try and post some things that are light and funny or recommendations of things that are non-related. I try and make it be
awesome.
And that's what the world needs more of.
For sure. And it's Danny Stiles, Stiles, no relation to Harry.
Or Julia.
No, just the hair. The good
That's
hair.
right.
Or Julia.
Or Ryan.
I think, like I said, or Ryan. Yeah, no Ryan. And there was a guy named Danny Stiles who had a jazz radio show in New York.
When I
moons
Googled
ago.
you, I found that, and he died. But they have your pictures associated with him.
No
and
way.
I was like, no, this is not right. Yes. I was like, that is the incorrect picture.
He was a member of AFTRA, the American Film and Television Association, the union.
Yeah.
And so when SAG-AFTRA combined, that was a little bit of an issue because we had the same name. So luckily they were like, the other guy's dead.
Oh, perfect. So you can have it. You can have his name. Good.
Thankfully. And then all of your pictures combined and you became one.
We are the same. Now I need to learn to play like jazz saxophone or something.
Right. Yeah, you got to play the part now.
I have come back to life. Okay, we'll let you go. We'll let you go have your day. Thanks again for hanging out with us. And guys, just keep in mind to leave us a rating, a review, subscribe to our podcast.
Follow us on social media at Ropedrop.Parkhop. And all that good stuff.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Danny.
Smash that like button. Smash
it.
Bye, guys.